got wood pigeon there.
Good morning, everyone. It's again another really lovely sunny day. The birds are calling, the blue sky is stunning, and we just started with a live goshawk. So
Goshawk.
Can't really get much better than that, can you, on your Thursday morning?
Come on. All birds are equal, but some are more equal than others. And the goshawk is one of those. Sensational stuff, and we'll show you a bit more of that in a minute. How are you feeling?
Oh, not brilliant today, not my best. I was up until about 3 a.m. last night.
Yes, me.
I don't know, I wasn't really doing anything. I just couldn't sleep. It's just one of those nights, you know. So I'm a little bit laggy.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I can pick up the slack today because my gastric induced soup problems have passed. Quite literally passed. So that's good. I'm back on solid food now.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for that.
Excellent stuff. Now, last week we were drawing attention to the Sound Approach UK, who every day post a bird call or song. You can still check them out on Twitter at Sound Approach UK. Brilliant stuff. We'll retweet all of their things as well. But Lucy Lapwing has been doing how to identify common bird songs for us. The Dawn Chorus hasn't reached its crescendo yet, but it's getting there. In the next week or so, it will be peaking. So you want to be in tune with the birds in your space. You have a garden, or you're taking your daily exercise, or merely listening out the window. Today, she's going to introduce us to another familiar species and tell us how we can learn and remember what it is. Over to you, Lucy.
Hello everyone, it's Lucy Lapwing again, and welcome back to day 4 of learning some bird songs of the day. Now today's songster is quite an easy one to learn, I think. It's one of the first ones I learned, and there's a really nice and funny way of remembering who this songster is. I got taught it by a volunteer when I was doing some bird surveys on a nature reserve, and it's one that just stuck instantly, so hopefully you can get it quite quickly. I've again got my prop, of course. It is of course the Chaffinch. This is the male with that gorgeous pink breast. The female in comparison is brown as well, but it's the male again, the songster. And what I'm going to do is play it and talk over the song just to tell you those features to pick out when you're listening to it. So here we go. The first thing to pick out with a Chaffinch song is the descent. It's a descending song. So imagine a flight of stairs or a waterfall. It's going down. That's the key feature. So start at the top, go down. The second thing, and the best feature, is that little scratch that you hear at the end. There's a little rasp. That pew at the end. And the way that volunteer described it to me, to remember that rasp, you've got to imagine this Chaffinch has got attitude. It's a whinge bag. It's whinging, so it's going. And at the very end, it blows a raspberry. So we'll listen to it again. It goes. So just imagine that little scratch is a. You ready? And it's got that little at the end, so just imagine Chaffinch, attitude, raspberry, descent, and then you've got it all ticked off, hopefully. So there you go. Chaffinch, 4th bird song of the day, and I'll be back again tomorrow for one last day of learning some birds just by their voice. So thanks again for watching, and back to you guys in the New Forest.
Thanks, Lucy. Look, we've got to say, learning birdsong isn't easy. It is quite tricky. The best way to do it is in the field. You know, go and listen to the birds, look at the birds, and then it seems to go in more. I tried to learn a lot of European birdsong once using CDs, driving backwards and forwards through France. I mean, it was partially. I tried to learn French, actually, from CDs, driving backwards and forwards through France. Both were only partially successful. And when it does come to birdsong, there's a lot of variability. And sometimes the birds don't do all of the song. And species like the great tit have got an enormous repertoire of calls. So frequently you can get caught out. It's something that takes practice over a period of years to get it right.
Yeah, if you can see them and hear them at the same time, it certainly helps. And I mean, I'm no expert, no expert in bird songs, so it certainly helps me to actually see the bird as it's singing. So on to our skull of the day. There's been lots of varying answers to this one. It seems like it might have been a bit of a tricky one, and I'm going to be a bit of a pain and not give you many more clues. Have a look at this. This is a quite large skull. The one clue that I'm going to give you, have a look at the dentition there, that'll be a bit of a clue as well. The one clue that I'm going to give you, and it's a bit naughty of me because it might trick you out, it is the largest land breeding mammal. In the UK. In the UK. It might trick you out a little bit, but it's a really cool skull. There are answers coming in, but it's varied, this one. Fantastic. It's a varied one.
I tell you, without further ado, let's go back to that goshawk, that live goshawk on the nest. This is not in the UK. We've been showing live cameras from around the world this week, and this one is organised and put up by the Latvian Fund for Nature. They do great things, not just live goshawks, but other live nest cams as well. The goshawk is a superbly impressive bird. We do have them nesting in the UK now. They disappeared at the beginning of the last century. I think it was around 1910. The last one was persecuted, shot out of the UK. But then they came back to escaped falconers' birds and birds which would have travelled from the continent here, where they remained quite common throughout that part of the last century. We think we probably now have about 450 breeding pairs of goshawk. We're in a hot spot down here in the New Forest where we have, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 40 pairs, probably around the edge of the forest. Kielder Forest is another hot spot. South Wales Forest, they're doing really well. We've got a little clip here. This is something that was recorded yesterday. The goshawk female stands up, and for the first time you can see that she's got a full clutch of 4 eggs. Those eggs are like a very, very pale blue. Got little rusty spots around the top. Sometimes they're more heavily marked. Beautiful to see that. They're a formidable predator, the goshawk. I call them avian terminators, because in the habitat where they live, they can pretty much kill anything they want. within reason to eat it. And their diet's very broad, therefore they'll take everything from mammals on the ground, such as rabbits and hares. They'll take squirrels in the trees, and a great range of bird prey, up to the size of pheasants.
Force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, so they are very much a force to be reckoned with. Thankfully, they are becoming slowly more populous in the UK. But fantastic views there. Check out Latvian Fun for Nature. Plenty of other webcams for you to look at, but that goshawk is an absolute stunner.
This morning we are joined by a fantastic guest. She's one of my mentors. She took me under her wildlife filmmaking wing when I first graduated from university. She's a fantastic ornithologist. I was up to 3 a.m.
That's the trouble with 3 a.m.
This is the
problem. You can't
problem.
get your ologies out.
I can't get my ologies out. Ornithologist. And she has a huge passion for penguins. Hi Ruth, how are you?
Hi Megan, hi Chris, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, very good, thank you, very good. Apart from Megan's sleeplessness, we're fine.
Awful.
How about you?
Excellent, not bad, although even though we're in self-isolation and I'm in the quietest road in Britain, the bin man's just decided to drive past, so sorry.
Of course.
It's always the way. It's always the way.
Classic. So as you were saying earlier, some birds are more equal than others, and I will definitely fight the case for the penguins being more equal than others. I'm really fortunate actually, because I managed to get back home just before all this chaos started here in the UK. I'd just spent 3 months down in the Antarctic filming penguins and working as a polar guide down there. So super exciting. I was making a documentary, or my own documentary, called Expedition Penguins. So I headed down to a really remote place called the South Sandwich Islands, looking to see how penguins were faring following a volcanic eruption that happened on Zavodosky just after Planet Earth 2 was filmed. So nobody actually knew if the world's largest colony of penguins had survived. So it was very exciting. And I'm obviously not going to tell you what we found. You'll have to watch the documentary to see. But having got back here, it was still pretty cold, and it got me thinking about how animals and birds in particular cope with the cold and the different adaptations that they have for that. So quite often in the garden, you might see your birds, or on your windowsill or anywhere really, you might see birds kind of fluffing up and looking really sort of puffed up. And that's a real adaptation that these birds have, British birds have, to kind of keep themselves warm. And also at night, you often see birds, and a lot of people think that they're tucking their heads under their wings, but they're not actually tucking their heads under their wings. They're resting their heads on their backs. And that's also a heat-saving kind of method. And penguins also do this. But penguins have a different adaptation which British birds don't have. And this is shared by marine mammals as well. And I've done a little video pre-recorded to show you something everyone can try at home, to show just how this fat, which I'll explain in the video, works.
Okay, so I'm going to do a really super easy experiment that you guys can do at home as well. So it's super fun, and the idea is to show how effective blubber is on animals. So things like whales, seals, penguins, of course, all have this extra special layer of fat around them called blubber, and that helps insulate them because they spend a lot of time in really cold, icy water, particularly in the polar regions. So what you need for this is a bowl of cold water. You'll have to trust me, there's definitely cold water in there. And I'm going to make it even colder by adding some ice. So you can tell, lots of water, lots of ice. And I've got 3 small plastic bags here, some paper towels because things are going to get messy, and most importantly, I've got my fat. Now this here is coconut butter, so it's totally vegan friendly, but of course you can use lard or anything available from the supermarket. And this is great as well because once this experiment's over, you can reuse it and make bird feeders, which Hannah Stipful showed us how to do just a couple of weeks ago. So great double purposing of your fat of choice here. So in order to make our blubber gloves, I'm going to put one plastic bag over my hand, and I'm going to coat my hand in this blubber. Now it really, on this fat, which is going to act a bit like blubber. Now it really helps if you've got someone who can help you do this, because as you can see, it's getting a little bit over my hand and getting a little bit messy, which I did kind of suspect might happen, but let's see. And I've just covered, just about covered the tips of my fingers there. I don't know if you can see, covered nicely in this. So if I just put that around there like that, nicely covered there, nice and warm. And I really should have had this is really a 2-person job. I should have had 2 people really. So I'm going to use my paper towel to try and clean my other hand one-handed. Didn't think this through at all whatsoever. It's clean enough. And then I take a second bag. This is why they said you should always practice stuff first. And I'm going to put this into here. This is to help preserve my fat for later. So I've now got this double insulated layer, which has got this layer of fat between it. And just so it's a fair comparison, get this plate out of the way now. I'm going to put a plastic glove onto my other hand. And this is where having another person, a parent or guardian or friendly uncle or aunt or somebody who can help you is incredibly helpful. I'm just not going to have to put my hand all the way into the water because it's going to go in down the sides. And then what you do is quite simply take this really cold water, wow, that is really cold, and you put your hands into the water and you see how long you can hold them there for. And I can tell you that this hand is incredibly cold already and it's feeling very uncomfortable being in the water for that long. But this hand, I could probably leave in there for much, much, much longer.
Okay, so since that video's been playing, you can potentially hear the builders started next door. Builder that hasn't been here since isolation began. It's all happening today. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to show a picture now of an object that I found on a beach whilst I was doing one of my expeditions this year. Hopefully that's showing now. And that I'm going to ask you guys to have a guess at what you think that object might be. I think you might have mentioned something about it previously, so hopefully people will be able to guess. So I'll leave that one hanging for now. And I'm going to see, have there been any questions or anything, Megan?
There have. There's been lots of questions coming in for you, all about different birds. So a question from Helen Cross. How heavy is the average penguin?
Well, I'm going to take the average penguin to be the Gen 2 penguin because they're my favourite penguin and it's the one that I happen to know the answer to off the top of my head. And the average Gen 2 penguin is about 5.5 kilograms in weight. So yeah, they're about this big, that big in height, and they're about 5.5 kilograms in weight. Now, penguins are actually heavier size for size comparison to other birds because they don't fly. So they've got much denser bones. They don't have hollow bones like our flying birds have. They've got solid bones, and this helps them in the water because they're using their wings to push against water. So they need kind of stronger resistance than birds that fly. And of course, they don't need the light weight in order to be able to come airborne as well. So penguins way heavier compared to their size, compared to our flying birds that you might see around the country.
Very stocky.
Yeah. Yes.
So another question from Naresh Mahey. Ruth, are you allowed to interact with the penguins, and what do you do if they come up to you?
Well, you're not allowed to approach penguins. So there's a rule in Antarctica that says that you can't get closer than 5 meters to a bird. So to any of the wildlife down there. So what you typically do is you'll make sure that you're no closer than 5 meters, unless you're working with the scientists. I have to say that I've done a lot of work with the scientists down there. The expedition that we just did was with the team from Penguin Watch, which, by the way, is a fantastic website if you want to count penguins and look at penguins all day, every day. Go to penguinwatch.org. Great. Those scientists are obviously able to get closer because they're taking samples and they're putting cameras in place and things. So when I'm working with them, we do get closer. But generally, you have to keep 5 meters away. Those penguins, they are curious, though, and quite often they will come to you. And I never reach out, I never try and touch a penguin, but sometimes you're sat there and they do climb all over you, and you just enjoy it, to be honest, and don't interfere back is my rule.
It's a very special experience, and I'm sure that's probably what you spend most of your days doing on Penguin Watch, counting penguins remotely, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a great activity for isolation. In fact, can I share with you a clip that I shot on my recent expedition? We've got chin straps and adeles here. Cool. Oh, brilliant. Yay. So so we've got chin straps and adeles, and this was just a GoPro that we set up while we noticed a penguin highway. So you get these areas where lots of penguins walk up and down, following the same path to get from the sea to their nesting sites, and they can walk hundreds and hundreds of meters, if not further. Some penguins even travel miles to get to their nest sites, and they always follow the same kind of track. So in snow or in softer ground, they create these kind of pathways, and it just becomes an absolute haven for penguins. So again, you were talking about not getting too close to penguins. Setting up a camera when there's a penguin highway takes a lot of time and patience to make sure that you're not getting in the way of them, and you obviously have to make sure that you're positioning your camera in such a way where the penguins aren't walking. But fantastic experience, and they get really curious with anything that you put down, be it cameras or people or anything like that. So yeah, super. It's they're amazing birds, and of course they're not predated. There's no natural predators in Antarctica, so they don't have a fear of people, they don't have a fear of anything, so they will come up to you and they will just check you out, and they're just absolutely incredible and very, very curious animals, and wonderful. If you ever get a chance to see them in the wild, or even in a zoo, or via television on webcams or anything like that, do check them out, because they're fascinating animals, and they've got wonderful personalities as well, which comes through all the time. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we'll do one more question quickly.
Okay.
Ruth, what is this is from Julie Dell, which is the rarest penguin species?
Ooh, the rarest penguin species is probably, off the top of my head, probably the yellow-eyed penguin in New Zealand. And most penguin species are actually threatened by fisheries, even those in Antarctica, unfortunately, because they're looking at expanding krill fishing, which happens now in Antarctica. So penguins, often they feed on fish or krill. Those are their sort of typical species that they'll feed upon. Some of them feed on squid as well. And unfortunately, humans also like to eat fish, and increasingly now krill as well. And the yellow-eyed penguin has lost, so they live in New Zealand. They've lost a lot of habitat along the coast due to human activity. So they're losing their nesting sites, but also they're being impacted by fishing. So they're getting caught in bycatch, and also they're just not having as much fish to feed on as well.
Okay, Ruth, that's absolutely brilliant. You better tell us what that object was that you picked up on the beach. Does anyone get it? Does it come through?
Nothing's come through, so I'm not too sure.
Okay, no one sent us any indication that they know what that is. Ruth, take it away.
Okay, so that was in fact a king penguin beak. We found a skull on the beach, and of course we opened it up to show exactly what's inside. Those kind of teeth-like projections that are inside are denticles, and they're used, I just mentioned that penguins feed on fish and krill. It's quite slippery, and they use those denticles to help force the fish down rather than just slipping back out. They're eating when they're at sea. So king penguin denticles. I don't know if we're able to show, I've got a picture of a Gentoo chick with its beak open there, and you can see the denticles even at the chick, even in the chick there. So yeah, great fascinating biology.
Amazing adaptations, keep those slippery fish down.
And we naturalists like to pick things up and examine them, and some of us like to keep bits of them for most of our lives. I need to draw your attention, Ruth, or take your mind back to 2010, when we were working together on Autumn Watch, and someone brought in a dead waxwing, which had collided with a car. Now, waxwings are visitors to the UK in the autumn and winter. They are again up there with goshawks and, as Ruth says, penguins, for being birds above all others. And we were in the office there, and I said, "Oh, I must have one of those wings for my collection." But strangely enough, the waxwing was spirited away, and it vanished. Ruth, yes, there we are. That's the wing
What?
of that wax
The
wing.
ends.
And you can see how it gets its name with those little waxy bits. Anyway, just to put a happier end to the story, because I was robbed of the waxwing's wing, a short while ago, 2016, Ruth was generous enough to give me one of the two waxwing's wings. And I've had it framed and put in a little box there. It's such a special thing. And this hangs on my office wall. But it's got something written on the back of this little frame here. And I'll read it to you now. It says, "This actually belongs to Ruth Peacey. She loaned it to me for my birthday in 2016. Please return it to the rightful owner, Ruth," and it's her address and her Twitter tag there. So yeah, when I pop my clogs, you can get your waxwing wing back. It's already set up for you to match the pair again at some stage in the future.
Could I just say now, I take no responsibility if anything happens to you. Yeah, of course. There we go. I might want my pair of wings, but I'm going to take no responsibility if anything happens to you, Chris.
You need the set.
If I'm murdered in my bed, it will be you trying to reclaim the waxwing's wing. What about that? Ruth, thanks ever so much for joining us. That was absolutely top work. Thank you very much. Your passion for penguins is, as ever, overflowing. So superb. Right, enjoy the rest of your day.
Speak soon. Thank you, Ruth.
Bye.
Now, yesterday we didn't have time for what was in this box. Yeah. Okay, something pretty special.
Again, it's about picking things up, isn't it?
It is about picking things up, and this is something. It's actually in a shower cap. I haven't had a chance to put this in a proper little box yet. I'm going to get it out now. And look at this. It is a piece of mammalian excrement, and there it is. Look at that, mammalian excrement. It's dark. It's full of hair.
Very hairy.
It's got a twisty little tail on the end. Look at that, like a little.
Well, when we see twists, we see foxes have that twist in their poo, don't they? So it's kind of a carnivore.
This is carnivore poo, but it's probably one of the rarest pieces of poo that I'm ever going to be able to own in my poo collection. This is the excrement from a snow leopard. This is snow leopard poo. What about that? I'm so excited. You know what? I'm going to have this put in a little box, just like the waxwing's wing, and I'm going to hang it in my. I'm going to put it in the downstairs toilet, so that if anyone comes to visit, they can actually, when they go into the toilet, there's going to be a collection of poo on the wall.
You're not going to label it, aren't you?
No, it's going to be a quiz. It's going to be a quiz. There's going to be a little tear-off sheet, and I'm going to have 5 or 6 pieces of exquisite poo there. So whilst they're using the toilet themselves, they can see if they can guess what the poo is.
No one's going to come around ever again. You scare people off. But I have a poo to rival your poo.
This is good
This
poo.
is a good poo. I like this one. Now, see if you guys can have a think about what this is. It is absolutely massive there, filled with all of that vegetation. Have a good look at that. I mean, it's just huge, isn't it? And it's quite lightweight, but of course, it's very dry.
It's dried now.
It's dried now. When it's wet and it's just been produced, it's going to be a lot heavier. This belongs to the black rhino. Black rhino. Did you know the black rhinos can produce 50 pounds of dung a day?
50 pounds of dung a day.
But they eat about 100 pounds of vegetation a day.
I was trying to rival that yesterday after that soup, to be quite honest.
Come on. Honestly, nobody wants to hear that, Chris. You have to stop it.
Okay.
But of course.
But that was once your poo. I brought that back for you, and I gave that to you when you were about 5 or 6 years old. I came in, I was so pleased. I thought you would keep that on your bedside cabinet when you were a kid.
I was 5 years old.
You weren't interested in that poo.
But what 5-year-old girl would like a lump of poo?
Well, I don't know.
I just thought it was
better than some souvenir from the
I
airport.
like it now.
No. You didn't want it then. It's mine now.
Oh, I feel like that's a bit unfair, isn't it? I'm going to hold this over here. Rhino poo is very important, isn't it? You like rhino poo. It's all about communication. Males and females come to communal areas called mid-dens where they excrete their excrement. And it holds volatile organic compounds, a group of chemicals that displays information about sex. Are you ready to breed? What condition are you in? And very interesting. We normally think about animals communicating by scent with scent glands and urine. Very unusual that they communicate through the chemicals in poo. So rhinos, awesome stuff.
Awesome stuff. Black rhino poo. I think we better move on. We've probably exhausted the topic. Well, only for today. I mean, there's a lot more upstairs in the boxes, obviously.
I'm worried about the state of our bathroom after this.
Right. Over the years, I have had the great fortune to work with some of the most amazing female presenters anywhere. Michaela Strachan is my current partner on Springwatch, but when I joined that programme many years ago, I met Kate Humble for the first time. Now, Kate is a wonderful woman. She is consummately professional as a presenter, a perfect foil for me, who turns up at the last minute thinking about, I don't know, like battleships rather than birds or something like that. And it was a real pleasure to work with Kate. She's a woman who spends a lot of her time in the countryside. She has a passionate relationship with her dogs, always has had. And this is a little film that she's made for us about her walk every day in the woods with her dog. Kate.
Hi Chris and Megan and self-isolating bird clubbers. I thought that I would take you for a walk in my local woods because at this time of year the woods are, well, possibly at their most spectacular. All the leaves are starting to come out. We've got mainly beech trees around here, and I love the vibrancy of the beech leaves as they start to unfurl. They're a kind of neon green, and in the sunshine that we've got today, they filter. You've got badly behaved poodles, I've got badly behaved dogs. They filter the light in this wonderful kind of dappley way. But I think the stars of the show at this time of year are the flowers. A few weeks ago, Chris filmed a beautiful, vibrant yellow flower called a celandine, which for him is the harbinger of spring. Well, this little flower is mine. This is a wood anemone. And it's absolutely beautiful. They are just coming to the end, really. Sometimes you can see them as early as January. And you can see, if you can see the leaves here, they are very similar to another flower that you might be very familiar with, which is the buttercup, and that's because they are the same family. And they've got these lovely pinky white star-like flowers, and what I've noticed is that in the morning they tend to be more closed up, and then as the sun hits them they open up with this wonderful radiance, cheerful radiance. And when you see them, when I first spot them, as I say, sometimes as early in the year as January, you think, yes, spring is definitely coming, something is happening beneath the soil, life is returning. The Romans thought so too. They saw these flowers as a lucky charm. Oh, that smell. It comes from this plant here, which is wild garlic. Foragers go mad for this stuff. It is absolutely wonderful. It's also known as ransoms. Or, if I get all fancy on you, its Latin name is Allium ursinum. Allium, of course, onion family. Ursinum, for those of you who know your bears, it is the Latin for bear. And so the other popular name for wild garlic is bear leek. And that is because brown bears apparently love the bulbs, love to eat the bulbs of this plant. Cats hate it though. Apparently it repels cats. Not dogs though, does it, dogs? You quite like it. It's so fragrant. You can eat every part of this, so the flowers are edible, but it's the leaves really that everybody loves. You can chop them up, make them into a pesto. You can make gnocchi with them if you're that way inclined. I'm kind of not. Chop it up, put it into salads, delicious with chicken. And the bulbs were used for medicinal purposes, very good for rheumatic conditions, apparently. High cholesterol as well. But it is wonderful stuff. In fact, while I'm here, I might just pick a bit. I feel a pesto coming on. Oh, amazing. Right. But the undisputed headline act has to be bluebells, of course. Dogs, it's not you. Stop trying to steal the show. Now, one of my favourite bluebell facts is that half the world's bluebells are actually found here in the UK. They're quite rare elsewhere in the world. And you may hear that people talk about Spanish bluebells and English bluebells. Well, I am pretty sure that these are English bluebells, and the reason for that is that they flop over. Dogs, get out of the way, no one can see anything. So they flop over like that. You can see that they're quite floppy, whereas the Spanish ones, the flowers are more upright. The other thing is that they can be white, they can be pink sometimes, but the crucial thing about bluebells is that they are actually quite a fragile plant, and if you step all over them, and this is the reason why it's really important to stay on paths, dogs. Get out of the way. Because these very delicate leaves through which they photosynthesize get crushed, and then they can't feed, and so they'll die. But they are so beautiful, and at this time of year, there's this amazing scent that starts to percolate through the woodlands. And of course, bluebells aren't just for our benefit. They're wonderful food for things like woodland butterflies and for hoverflies and for bees. And bees can actually drill a hole to get at the nectar through the bottom of the flower and avoid pollinating it, which seems a bit ungrateful, I think. And for those who are lovelorn amongst you, you might want to know that if you can turn a bluebell inside out without tearing it, you will win the one you love. And they've got some wonderful traditional names. Witch's thimbles is one, but I think my favourite is Cuckoo's boots. I think a cuckoo would look very, very splendid in a pair of bluebell blue boots. Honestly, why is it that dogs always have to steal the show? You're a pest, get out of the way. They spend actually most of their life as bulbs underground, and it's only at this time of year that they really start to show themselves, and then they shrink back again. And those bulbs are incredibly starchy, and they were used by the Elizabethans apparently. They were boiled up to create that starch and used for all those ridiculous ruffs and cuffs, you know, to make them all stiff and perfect. And the sap is very sticky, and it was once used for binding books and for sticking arrows to quills. So, you know, if you've got an arrow that needs sticking, this is what you need. However, it is now absolutely illegal to pick bluebells or to dig them up and plant them elsewhere. So you'll have to find something else to stick your books with. But aren't they just lovely? Come on, you lot. Come on, let's go. Come on. Come on, Belle.
Fabulous, the one and only Kate Humble. And it is a very special thing to do, to go for a walk with your dog. I like the idea of sharing my experience with a different organism. I mean, they're in a different world. You know, within an hour now, I should be out taking my daily exercise with Sid and Nancy. And for them, it's going to be all about noses. It's going to be sniffing this, that, and the other. All of those invisible signs that I just can't see. And I often think to myself, you know, I'd love to spend 5 minutes to reverse the roles, where I was the dog and they were the human, so I could just immerse myself in their world. Thank you, Kate. That was absolutely fantastic. Now, a few people are on social media saying that I've touched my face after handing the poo without washing my hands. My mum used to say, Christopher, wash your hands. And I used to say, I will do one day, Mum. And that day hasn't quite come yet. But yeah, don't worry, I will be careful and wash my hands a little later. Yeah.
I hope so.
There is some degree of hygiene. But we naturalists, you know, we are not put off by those sorts of things. It's part and parcel of everyday life for us to be exploring these things. So I suppose we've become a little bit blasé about that. Yeah, maybe not the time to be blasé at this particular point in time. And we are all washing our hands so much that, frankly, they're all cracking up.
They're all dry, aren't they?
dry and cracking up. Okay, just before we wrap up then, you have been sending some fantastic photos. Big, bold, insectivorous birds. When I say insectivorous, they're eating large insects like locusts and beetles. They look fabulously colourful, but as we've already discussed, it's all structural colour. No pigment in there at all. There's no true blue. That's all little bubbles in the feathers. Also had this picture sent in. This is from Molly Birchmore. It's of a kea. The kea is a type of New Zealand parrot found on South Island. Was quite a rare bird. It had a bounty on its head up until 1970. They were paying people to kill them because they are omnivorous. They eat vegetable as well as carrion, and they were certainly eating a lot of lamb carrion in New Zealand, and this meant there was association between them and the deaths of stock, so people paid a bounty. Thankfully, conservation has now got a handle on this, and the population is beginning to recover. I've never been to New Zealand. I've not seen them in the wild. I have seen them in captivity. They are remarkably intelligent birds. Really, problem solving, really smart. Yes.
Currency, they can use currency. We're learning more about, which is interesting because the shape of their bill, they've got a downward curved bill. And actually, they shouldn't really be able to use tools, but they're so intelligent that they're able to maneuver their body so that they're better able to pick things up and use those tools. It's fantastic.
I saw a kea once. It came out, there was a tap and a bowl beneath it. It turned the tap on, filled the bowl with water, and then turned the tap off again, and then had a drink.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Amazing
stuff. We also were sent in this clip by Michael Coates. This is of a broad-billed hummingbird. This is a female. The males have a very distinctive red bill, and they're much more colourful as well. They've got that beautiful iridescent green. But you often see them around these hummingbird feeders in Mexico, where this clip was taken, and also in south parts of the US as well. They come in because they have to drink a lot of this nectar, the sugar water syrupy stuff. They have to drink about 1.6 to 1.7 times their body weight per day. A lot of energy keeping that flying going.
It is.
Very, very energetic, but a beautiful bird as well.
Yeah, sensational stuff. Yeah. Okay, you better tell people what Skull of the
Day
was.
Wrap this up. So lots of people have said, I think said potentially otter, lots of people saying harbour seal, but on Facebook, the people that got this one right were Paul, Boo, Jane, Laura, Sue and Zoe. Twitter, Karina, John, Heather, Valerie, Chris, David. YouTube, we've got France, Luke, Alison, Wanda and Will. Well done to everyone who said this right. This is the skull of the grey seal. The grey seal. We have about half of the world's population in the UK, which is about 1,020 individuals. They are, despite, we've got also the common seal in the UK, however, the grey seal is more common than that of the actual common seal, which is quite interesting. But they've got very, very distinctive skulls, very large eye sockets, sense and see their prey, but they're also very reliant on their hearing and their sense of smell, and these sensitive whiskers to find their prey as well. But it's an amazing skull, isn't it?
Yeah, really sharp teeth here. So it's got these canine teeth for gripping, and then the rest of the teeth beneath the skull there are used for slicing the fish up. Yeah, so this is our largest predator. This is a female skull. The males would be even bigger. So some people who were saying harbour seal, probably based on size, but this we should have said perhaps, it's the female one.
The skulls can tell us a lot. They can tell us a lot. In the 1960s in the Baltic Sea, there was a pollution explosion. So what happened was scientists took the skulls from before this pollution event and after this pollution event and found that actually the pollution, it causes asymmetry in skulls and affects their nutritional intake and their development too. Which is really interesting. Asymmetrical skull, pollution
individuals. Sorry. Fantastic stuff. Tomorrow we've got Luke Massey coming back to show us some more of the animals that he finds on his farm using camera traps in Spain. Lindsay will be here with all of your content. We're going to leave you with these goshawks. But before we do, Fabian Harrison, who's running this whole thing in Norwich, what he did, he got the Latvian Fund for Nature post, the language beneath, copied through Google Translator, and he's found that this particular pair of goshawks that you can look at live have a reputation for attacking local people. They're so territorial. I've been attacked by a few birds, but I really wouldn't want to be attacked by an irate female goshawk. So we'll leave you with this nest, and you'll be safe to watch it from wherever you are. Enjoy, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. Moment, just sat there. Yeah. Right, yeah, it's a good shot. Amazing. Oh, in Riga. Right. Well, they got loads of them. That last time I heard it was 19 pairs in urban Berlin.